it's a lot easier to get to a city and assimilate than it is to, you know, do it the other way around. But it's important that we do it and that we retain our connection.
Barton, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me today on the podcast. I'm so grateful for your time. I know how busy you are running this amazing empire you got going, which I can't wait to talk to you about.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure, Rob.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit before, and I know that, given the business you're in and, your focus on health and wellness, that sometimes if you're watching this on YouTube, you might see Barton moving a little because he's got one of those walking treadmill desks. So that was
That's right.
fun when we were catching up earlier. Very cool. Inspiring, by the way.
Yeah,
I love
thank
it.
you.
I love
Thank
it.
you. Yeah.
So,
Good.
the place I like to start with the interviews is kind of to go back to the early days. And
Mhm.
I'm curious if in your youth, did you notice in any way that you kind of had this entrepreneurial gene within you?
Yeah.
You did.
The first time I got paid for something, I think I was pretty young, like I think I was 7. And I grew up in a rural area, and I negotiated $100, which was a lot in the 90s for a 7-year-old kid, to walk in my own sister's wedding. And because I realized that the demand was high, the need was strong, and I just said, I'd love to be able to walk. I'm sure I could fit it into my schedule, or
Oh
some
my God,
version of
that's great.
that.
So you were working
And
it.
and yeah. So,
Love it.
and so my dad, very like laughingly obliged me. He's like, "Wow, this he's gonna be a handful. Wow." And I've never ceased being a handful. I would have probably had a lemonade stand and mowed lawns, but where I was just too remote and rural
Uh-huh.
to really do things like that much. But really, I grew up in the wilderness. I was hunting and fishing when I wasn't in sports like wrestling and football and track, and um, it was great. It was a great education, and something about growing up in nature is just.
Yeah.
I didn't realize what a gift it was at the time, but wow. Actually, I think I did. I just didn't realize how different it could be,
Yeah.
if that
And
makes sense.
interesting that, you grew up, you say rural, it was in nature,
Mhm.
and now you find yourself in
Cities
a
all the
city.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, obviously you have nature nearby. You're in Miami, you mentioned.
Mhm.
So how has that adjustment been for you in your life, or what's that been like?
Yeah, well, I think from a productivity standpoint, it's good to have both.
Yeah.
And I like to go to the beach, like each day, start the morning there, get sunlight in my eyes,
Hmm.
get my creative flow going,
Yeah.
and jump in the ocean, and do a little bit of cold water therapy. And um, I would say it's just a lot easier. I've noticed. I've taken a lot of people into nature, hunting, fishing, things like that. And
Uh,
it's a lot easier to get to a city and assimilate than it is to, do it the other way around. But it's important that we do it and that we retain our connection to nature.
yeah.
And that is incredibly connected to how creative we become. I really
Yeah.
believe. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I read that I read this message here that you always had a strong will and had
Yeah.
accepted many hard challenges. What does that mean?
Interesting. I don't know if that was an article or something, but certainly true. I don't know if someone like wrote that about me or that was a
Yeah.
comment I made or what, but wrestling really was, I mean, still to this day, I think most people have never done anything as tough as that, to be completely honest.
Mhm.
And I'm glad to even though I was great at it, I'm glad to be done with it now. I'm glad to have closed that chapter and have the lessons, but there's just like rarely anything you do as an entrepreneur that's as tough as that, to be honest.
Mhm.
there are things you don't like doing, but there are things that rarely that are both that you don't like doing, that are painful, that leave you out of breath in an anaerobic state for hours a day, gasping and just like, even when you're like the best on the team, the best at the turn, it's still so brutal. And it made me very conscious though about, considering what I do now. Um, it allowed me the toughness to get through chemical engineering. So I would say for someone that is considering doing something really hard and you're like, I don't know if I can justify it, there's always value in doing hard things. There is. That doesn't mean you don't listen to your body. I've developed a really fine balance in how hard I can push myself and how closely I listen to my body. And that keeps you from getting hurt. It keeps you safe. It allows you to achieve things at the same time, though, that are rewarding.
Yeah.
And that constantly stacks on itself and compounds. So,
It's
yeah.
great because it's so true. Being in business is hard. And if you do hard things prior to
Can be.
business, yeah.
Right. It can be.
Mhm.
And yet, yeah, exactly. You do, yeah, harder things than business. Then you come to your business and it's like, well, yeah, it was a tough day at the office, but I wasn't at war,
But I
or
know that's right.
I wasn't,
You
some
got it.
version that feels that way. So,
Yeah, right. So, I read that you went to college. You were on the president's list and the dean's list. Um, and we write
yeah.
in the book and we teach like, should I go to college? I'm a budding entrepreneur. Like maybe I should just jump in and go and start my business. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, having experienced it.
Yeah, I have a really clear answer on that. And that's only if you're going to learn something like chemical engineering that you have no chance of learning outside of school.
Which you
Because
needed to
that,
learn for your business.
for sure, yeah. Like, so for what I do now, which is, create novel, unique supplements that are designed to effectively pull people into a recovery state and allow them to get off of prescription medication, allow them to, with guidance, of course, but we have nutritionists that walk people through consultations. It's all done remotely from anywhere in the world. And then our supplements have gone through clinical trials. And not only the formulas are great and the selection of ingredients are great, but the actual delivery systems for all our mineral products, like our magnesium, have been engineered so that it's a plasma and it absorbs without digestion. And that really allows us to positively influence personality over time by giving you more energy, helping you feel safer in your body, be able to make better decisions, be able to follow through more, be able to see yourself in that habit, that new habit state, have that affect how you show up, have that affect your personality and your personal reality. And that is not something you can learn online.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean I don't that I believe you should go to school for things like marketing, because I don't. Um, but there's very few people in the entire world that could get through the rigors of something like chemical engineering on their own without the
Mhm.
pressure. And that's not intelligence. It's just the workload was so extreme that it's just truly unbelievable, where we would all look around and we go like, what? Like, don't they know we have like six other classes? Like this is, so the joke was like, you never had to make weekend plans because some PTSD coming up here. I'm gonna get through this quickly. Oh, because you already had plans. And you'd be studying. So I knew that there, though, by doing that, my advice to people is, or your kids, if you're looking at coaching them on something, is, if you have some draw to it though, and it's just seems like a really tough challenge and you're not sure if you can do it, like if it's worth failing at, because it's you'll become someone new and different.
Mhm.
Um, Dude, go for it. Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
So, I read that
And putting money on the line by paying to go
to
somewhere,
go to
or
school. Yeah.
just ensures that you're more likely to follow through.
Yeah. That's so true. I read in your 20s, you were actually experiencing some challenges, things like brain fog, memory loss, mental fatigue, and you even lost somebody close to you from a brain aneurysm. And this sort of fueled you to figure this whole thing out and create this business. Is
Yeah,
that, talk a little bit about that?
my mom passed with the aneurysm
Mm.
after having a lot of other complications, but she started off a couple years before that in her 60s as a very healthy person
Hmm.
with no real signs of anything and a happy life. And because that was the starting point, and because my memory was so sharp on my end and it dropped off thanks to sports induced nutritional deficiency and also medication induced deficiencies like Vyvanse, Adderall, things like that
Mm.
plenty of people take during college. Um, it's almost fashionable, unfortunately,
True.
just like a Starbucks latte,
So
is
true.
fashionable among 12-year-olds now. Um, Talking about like kids having large mega doses of caffeine and they haven't even hit puberty. I mean, their brains are not, much less their, brains, endocrine system, all of it's just not ready for, I would say no one's ready for 600 milligrams of caffeine a day. And no wonder there's like, yeah, that's going to drive personality. It's going to deplete magnesium. You're not going to feel safe in your body. And that's not a question. That's a lot like gravity. And that's what my book will be out on this coming year, says about how nutrition becomes personality and what to do about it. Because I see so many people that are in great positions to do good things to their health. Like they're wealthy and they're going to private school and their kids are just downing copious amounts of caffeine because they want to feel something. I get it. We're all here to feel. It's the essence of being alive. But but do it like learn the pharmacopoeia of supplements out there so that you can feel that aliveness by, maybe it's tyrosine, maybe it's carnitine, maybe it's teacrine that a friend of mine actually developed and patented, because it's sleeping well, like our magnesium that we did a clinical trial on, to probe it. It's superior to really anything on the market for sleep.
Hmm.
Um, you sleep well and you don't even think about caffeine. Well, unless you have a peer group that's like, hey, let's go get a bunch of
Social.
caffeine or booze or whatever it is. Um, yeah, but these things that build will, to go back to that, are really important.
Yeah.
I've done long fast. I've done 11-day water and mineral fast, no calories, little bits of like green tea and A, you get so much done. B, your body heals when it's not digesting. And then like C, the will gets strengthened and it's spiritual. And you start to break habits and you start to, have more time for reflection. And it's interesting how quick we're all on this path of becoming, right? And I think entrepreneurship is one of the greatest self-development tools. And on
So
this
true.
path, right? And on this path of becoming, we have the options if we're smart about it, wise about it, to increase the speed at which we're becoming and or increase the enjoyment of which we're becoming, and or both, or the reliability of which we're becoming, and our businesses blossom as a result too.
Yeah.
Um,
So let's talk about your business a little bit. We teach that you're going to have a nightmare at some point, meaning something that goes
Been
really
there,
icky.
yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to have a dream, like the big something or other that you just like, wow, this is what it was all about, at least in my mind, what I thought it was all about. Can you share the story of something that was really challenging that you had to get through and then something that would really worked out great?
Sure. I had a business partner, just, I worked so many long weekends and nights and early mornings, and And then I had a business partner that really helped me a lot. And then the first day I was on quasi vacation. Um, I had he just out of nowhere quit. And
Wow.
like um yeah, and it just it was really tough. And um there's something, if things are going to break and you really want them to work, you know, sometimes like in that situation, it was good that it broke, and it allowed me to build a much stronger team, one that was, and it also let me reflect on why it didn't work. And there's always some big part you play in it, especially when you think you played no part in it. There's the big part. So that helped me rethink incentives. And it was like, is this person incentivized either too much and they're wanting to stay on, or too little and they're not quitting, but they're not engaged enough. And I've made both of those mistakes.
Hmm.
Um, Over incentivize someone, special treatment, under incentivize plenty of people too. And when you have a really magnetic brand and movement that you're offering, people want to join. But for them to be engaged and for you to be able to feel like you can call on them to do things that they don't want to do, and hold them to that, they need to be properly incentivized so that they actually, first of all, they want to do it and they don't need as much motivation
Hmm.
or really any, and they become leaders. But you're just not going to have leaders that, or anyone long term, if they're talented, that are under incentivized.
Yeah.
So
So you started out with a partner. Do you currently have a partner, or you?
yeah, I have two right now.
So you are a partner person because we talk about that.
Yeah,
And can you talk a
yeah.
little bit about what it's like having partners?
Well, I've done both for sure. And the
Hmm.
majority of the company I've felt by myself, and still it's like overwhelming part, I have the overwhelming majority of the company.
Okay. Yeah.
So like 90%. But that's also because the business is almost 8 years old now. And because I did a lot of things you know, that like we invented a new process for minerals.
Yeah.
So it's different than like if I was starting a company today, I might do a third, a third, a third, or 25%. I don't actually like even number. I think someone should be greater than 50%, and then there should be other people. So it's clear. It's just clear for people. Hey, this person's gonna do this and this and this and this, and this person's not gonna do those things, and they're gonna provide value in this area. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, with what we do, I just, it's something that I show up and work at every day. My, you know, I'm often meeting and talking to people at midnight on Saturday, and I'm not trying to, it's just naturally coming out. And I want partners that are that way too.
Hmm. Love it.
And that's really what we have. And really like pretty much everyone on our team is that way.
Hmm.
They're just so bought in. So
I
yeah.
mean, one of the things we talk about is work hard, really hard. It's helpful if you have a passion for what you're doing because maybe it doesn't feel like work. But can you talk about that from the early stages, how hard you've had to work? I mean, if you're doing midnight calls on a Saturday,
Oh,
that's working hard
yeah, I would
most
never
people's
do a
standards.
midnight call. And unless, well, I just wouldn't. But
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
mean like socializing in a way
Oh,
that's
oh,
going to
gotcha.
benefit the company. And then what was your question there? You were
Well, just
saying.
the whole idea around how hard you have to work to build a
Mm,
company. Because nowadays
mm,
we believe that it's a little there's a little bit of romance around becoming an entrepreneur,
mm.
but then when you get
Yeah,
into the
there is.
details and you get going, you have to work hard.
Yeah, yeah, there is. Well, I don't know if I have much to add there. I think that's fairly obvious for people. And stay tuned if it's not obvious. If it hasn't become obvious now, you'd probably either be bored by my answer on that question, or you would go like, man, like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's
That's
like,
great.
yeah,
You're about to
no,
find out.
no one escapes that one. So,
I wanted to ask you, we teach that the bigger the problem you solve in the world, the more successful you will be. And it seems to
mm-hmm,
me, I could have this wrong, but you're solving two big problems. One with brain health and bodily health, and the other with your partnership, I believe, with Charity Water. So
mm-hmm.
can you talk about, how that's playing out for you, solving these big problems in the world and how that's working for you all?
Yeah, thank you. So internally, we talked about incentives, and externally, I would say value is the word. So yeah, you're successful in proportion to the value you give to people, and then your growth is how frictionless you make that value to achieve uh, for people, I would say, and um, yeah, loving it's a big part of it,
Yeah.
and having, the one thing, this is kind of like a parenthesis or an aside to what we're talking about, but um, you have to have your own internal scorecard, I find. So otherwise, it'll naturally be made for you. So your revenue goals or your net margin goals or whatever it is, how does it make you feel though? What feeling are you going for? You going for the feeling of safety? You going for the feeling of contribution? You going for the feeling, probably multiple feelings, right? You want to feel abundant, rich. But having, wealth and riches, um, yeah, I mean it's a start. It's not the end. It's just like where things start, I think. Because as a business owner, becoming rich allows me to think differently. It allows us to maybe invest in a customer care plan and think more slowly and deliberately about things. And so it changes my experience. So looking at the why behind whatever it is you think you want and asking why 3 to 5 times. So let's take, riches or freedom and go 3 to 5 levels into it. So I want to be very rich. I want to not have to think about money again, um, and still operate business from that and yeah, operate business from that standpoint. Well, why is that? It's like, well, that would just make me more creative. Okay, well, what does that give you? Well, or having that, how does that make you feel? It's like, well, if I'm creative, and so following this thread through, you kind of get down to knowing yourself. Goes back to that personal development part. You grow, the business grows. Um, yeah, so that's really my thoughts.
Martin,
So
that is
that
so.
creativity for me is like what lights me up. Same reason I love the amazing relationship. God, I can really say this now. It had been a wish and a dream all my life, but to have the right woman in my life and having her name is Sandra, now is such a relief, and it allows my focus to be so much cleaner on just work instead of, oh, I'm going to work and then I'm going to go out and then I'm going to save time and it's like I get to just like create differently.
Yeah.
Get to expand. To me, like being creative is just, God, it's so embodied. And it's going to be different for everyone, I think, for a lot of different reasons, how you're brought up, all sorts of things.
So during this section of the podcast, everyone, I'm going to encourage you to rewind about, I don't know, 2 minutes and re-listen to what Barton just said, because there was so much wisdom in what you just shared with the listeners. It's going down 3, 4, 5 levels and asking yourself why. It was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. It was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah,
I,
my
wa-
pleasure.
I
It's
wanted
fun to
to,
share.
yeah, yeah. I want to talk about taking criticism with a grain of salt because,
Yeah.
you're going to get criticized in business for things you're doing. And I'm curious, I don't know your business well, but
Yeah.
I imagine, when you're in that type of business, there may be some people that have some
Hmm.
criticisms around
Sure.
what you've invented, what you've created.
Mm.
And what
Sure.
I'm curious about, if that is the case, and it looks like it is, how have you handled them as they've come along, both, mentally and physically and any other way?
So a great, we can talk about tools and then we can talk about actions. So, um, actions, I would say, allow your criticism to fuel you in appropriate directions. So if someone's going like, "Where's the proof?" Then go get proof. Um, so yeah, for example, we've done 2 clinical trials. Like supplement companies don't do those. They're really expensive. Yeah. Hundreds of thousands of dollars often. And yet, like when you get proof, like suddenly you relax because hey, some people will still complain, but at least you have proof for the people that actually care, or they might be saying, hey, you don't have proof because they are not aware that you have it because you haven't marketed it well enough or displayed it or educated well enough or whatever it is. So again, that's feel free to accept some blame there. And don't think of it as blame. Think of it as I just haven't done it yet. It doesn't mean that I'm, anything labeling yourself, or it's just like, okay, that's, everything takes time. Especially if you're bootstrapping your company and, it's like
Yeah.
there's probably going to be like you're trading time for freedom, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, or money, yeah, so or not willing to do that. So, and that's totally great. Just be aware of the trade you're making. And then in terms of tools, meditation, I do transcendental meditation. It's a mantra-based meditation that you say quietly. It's the same thing that Oprah and Tim Ferriss and a lot of Tim's a friend of a friend now. Like, so many great people that I followed for years use, I would say, again, model what works. I've gotten to a point now where it's like, if I could just sell the habits and my way of thinking around habits, it'd probably be super valuable for a lot of
Mhm.
people. And those are hard won, but I got those by modeling a lot
Yeah.
of success. And it's fun. It should be fun. It should feel fun. It should feel like probably like a bit of a challenge, but also fun,
Yeah. I love
exciting,
that. I love the way you
and
frame that.
exciting. Yeah, excite. Thank you. Excitement and fear, really, or just like
That's good.
it's just how you interpret. It's your threshold.
Yeah.
Something that's exciting, it becomes too exciting, you're fearful.
Yeah.
Becomes like, so just remember that. And then something I've discovered outside of things like plant medicines and psychedelics is emotion code. And you can find emotion code. I don't think I gave our website out yet either. You can find a lot of support for your mental health and your physical health through products like Upgraded Mood, Upgraded Tea, Upgraded Magnesium, and Upgraded Formulas.
Hmm.
Um, and we can give out a code later for people to get a discount to
Yeah.
try things out. The
Yeah.
So happy to do that, just because I can, feels good. And I would say also, things like emotion code have played a role, and that's been easy to do. That site is discoverhealing.com, and I've noticed a lot of benefit from them. No affiliation, but a lot of praise for something that just seems like it couldn't possibly work, and it's phenomenally
Hmm.
effective.
Hmm.
Because trapped emotion from the time you're a kid, even inherited, which is how our DNA morphs over time. We get these like things that are handed down to us. That's how evolution happens, is epigenetics, really, the ability to change DNA through experience. But we also have that ability. When we remove these trapped emotions, you feel a lot more free. I feel a lot more free than I did 6 months ago before I really discovered this. And so that's huge too.
I love it. Let's get into some tactical stuff with the business, because you mentioned bootstrapping, which many people do these days, which I
Mm.
bootstrapped my first business, and I know what that's all about. What about the importance of generating cash, and when did you realize how important this is?
It's important, right? Turns out so important. I think I was always aware of it,
Really?
truthfully, because my dad had been a coach, but he had also been an entrepreneur. He had a filtration company, and I got to see how business could be done through creating great relationships, and just being, he always said, like, be the type of person other people want to be around. And you'll really, and then have someone in your life that you can share the wins with. You'll have the wins, and you'll have challenges, and when times are great, you're going to want to share it, and times are tough, you're going to want to share it. And um yeah, I mean, um I think Rich Dad Poor Dad taught me a lot
Mhm.
about basic economics. That, and then Ramit Sethi's book, Will Teach You to Be Rich. I mean, I've read a lot of books throughout the years, and there's so many more I want to read, and so many I want to reread. Um, so, so yeah, if you don't have a good grasp of money, find someone that does. Ask the dumbest questions possible. Ask, Google and ChatGPT. And um, it was actually a book that was recommended to me recently called A Happy Pocket Full of Money.
Great name.
And he said that, and he teaches this, and he helps people reframe their relationship with money. And he said that it's been the most impactful book. And then Ken Honda in Japan has become a good friend, and he's like the largest author there, sort of like a Dave Ramsey here. So I would say just like reading about it, not
Yeah.
expecting yourself to be like naturally gifted at understanding it.
Yeah.
Just like anything else, like it's, don't blame yourself, but also get to work and learn some stuff.
Yeah. Critical.
But follow your bliss too. Follow your bliss. That's how it led me to upgraded formulas, to creating a brand, to knowing, to like, otherwise, like, you wouldn't even name the company well. It wouldn't be an alignment, because it's not something that you like. But in this
Yeah.
case, I love it. I've constantly, I mean, if you saw all the supplements that I've experimented with throughout the years, lab time, conversations with chemists, other chemists, I say chemical engineering, and for anyone, to kind of give a little background there. And then, and I work, so that gave me a great foundation to understand a lot of different things. I remember watching Good Will Hunting, side note, and going like, wow, organic chemistry seems so difficult. And that's like the second class that you take in college. And chemical, and it's like, oh, and you need that to like do the other stuff. It's like, wow, this
Mm.
is cool, and also like, whoa.
Yeah. Mind blowing. Love it.
But if you can just have your mind blown on a daily basis, you're really getting somewhere.
I have a final question for you, and I think it's interesting on some of the
And if you
things.
love it,
Yeah,
if
loving
you,
it is key. Your passion, your
yeah.
passion around it. Can you talk about how you brought coaching, training, mentoring into your life and into business, and how this has been important for you to be a better leader, a better business person, probably even a better person?
Yeah.
Just the importance of investing in that, investing in yourself in that way, time
Yeah.
and money.
Yeah. I've spent a lot. I'm a part of different masterminds. Um, I think it's just obvious to acknowledge the fact that other people have spent more time. Other people, there's plenty of other people just as smart as you. There's other people that have spent more time and more passion and have gone deeper in areas. And by learning from them, you save a lot of time. And it just makes you a more interesting person. Like,
Yeah.
just, yeah.
That too.
Let's
Yeah.
face it. Like, you're just not, I mean, no one has all the answers. So,
Yeah.
but if you can be someone that's constantly open to new answers, and the ability to hold multiple concepts at the same time that are conflicting is a rare skill. And if you can develop that, and it's not necessarily something you're born with, if you can develop
Mhm.
it,
Mhm.
and you can by putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, like go to a static dance and be uncomfortable until it becomes comfortable, and then go to, I would say, like investing in these things where you really know yourself. And then when you're in some situation you don't like of any sort, you just have more skills and you realize the need to be prepared.
Love it. Love it. Barton, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me. I'm so grateful for your time.
Yeah, same. This is great. Really enjoyed it. I
And
hope it was
all
helpful for everyone listening.
I will tell you most definitely a lot of nuggets in there. And to the amazing entrepreneurs listening today, I greatly appreciate you spending time with us. And I wish you all much love and gratitude.
Beautiful. Oh, and then that code, if you want to give
Oh,
them the
yes.
code, would
Okay.
be,
Let me just share that code with you, which will be in the show notes.
yeah.
But Barton has been generous and he is providing a code for everybody listening today. It is Barton
Mm,
10, Barton, the number 10, and that will give you 10% off. And I would imagine you would go to upgradedformulas.com and
mm,
all the products are there. And there's some wonderful tools, by the way, to kind of get you going. There's a
mm,
survey, I think it is, or a quiz of
mm,
some sort that will
mm,
kind of show you the way.
mm.
I noticed for me, I was asked if I had gray hair, which I was trying to decide if I do. I kind of do. So I answered yes.
Yeah,
But that was
yeah,
fun. There were
yeah.
different questions that really were, led me in the right direction. So it was
We,
very cool.
yeah, we can even help people go like dial back gray hair, go gray
Yeah.
more slowly.
Yeah.
It's just another thing I'll say about health is just that symptoms are your allies. So if someone's very gray early in their life, yeah, it's just a symptom and it's begging for your attention.
For your
So it's
attention.
your
Yeah.
responsibility to figure out how and what to do about it and watch the rest of your life blossom as you do figure it out and you have more energy and you become just like a better person in the process, more emotional bandwidth because you have more energy, all these things. So headaches, constipation, leg cramps, anything you can think of, going gray, low energy, all those things, and we help you with that.
You do.
So,
You do. Arden, thanks again. I greatly appreciate it.
such a pleasure. Thanks, Rob.